You're sitting across from someone who's trying to play you. You can feel it. The subtle pressure, the calculated questions, the way they're steering the conversation exactly where they want it to go. Most people, they fall for it. They get defensive. They try to argue. They play right into the manipulator's hands. But what if I told you there's a different way? What if instead of being the puppet, you could cut the strings entirely? See, manipulators operate on one fundamental assumption, that you don't know what they're doing. They rely on you being unaware, reactive, and emotionally vulnerable. But once you understand their playbook once, you can see the game for what it is. Everything changes. Today we're diving deep into Machiavellian strategy, not to become manipulators ourselves, but to recognize manipulation when it happens, and respond with such calculated precision that the manipulator realizes they've met their match. This isn't about being cruel. It's about protecting yourself, maintaining your boundaries, and ensuring that no one gets to control your decisions or emotions without your consent. By the end of this video, you'll understand the core tactics manipulators use, why they work, and most importantly, how to neutralize them completely. Let's get into it. Before we can counter manipulation, we need to understand how manipulators think. And here's the truth. Most manipulators aren't evil geniuses. They're people who've learned that certain tactics get them what they want. Manipulators operate from a position of perceived scarcity. They believe that to get their needs met, they must control others. This could stem from childhood experiences, personality traits, or simply learned behavior that's been reinforced over time. They view interactions as zero-sum games. For them to win, you must lose. This is fundamentally different from healthy relationships, which are built on mutual benefit and honest communication. Now, there are three main types of manipulators you need to recognize. First, there's the emotional manipulator. This person uses guilt, fear, and obligation to control you. They're masters of the phrase, "After all I've done for you," and they keep emotional scorecards that are always tilted in their favor. They make you feel like you're constantly in debt to them, like you owe them something simply for existing in their life. Second, the strategic manipulator. This is your classic Machiavellian type, calculating, patient, and always thinking 3 moves ahead. They gather information, identify your weaknesses, and exploit them with surgical precision. These people are dangerous because they don't act impulsively. Every word, every gesture, every favor is calculated for maximum leverage later. Third, the narcissistic manipulator. Everything revolves around their needs, their ego, their perception. They manipulate not just to get what they want, but to maintain their inflated self-image and ensure constant validation. You're not a person to them. You're a mirror that needs to reflect back the image they want to see. Understanding which type you're dealing with is crucial because each requires slightly different countermeasures. But here's why manipulation works in the first place. It exploits fundamental human psychology. We're social creatures programmed to maintain relationships, avoid conflict, and reciprocate kindness. Manipulators hijack these natural tendencies. They create artificial urgency. I need an answer now. They invoke authority. Everyone agrees with me. They use reciprocity. They do you a small favor, so you feel obligated to grant them a large request. The key insight? Manipulation only works when you're operating on autopilot, when your responses are automatic rather than conscious. And that's exactly what we're going to change. Now that we understand the manipulator's playbook, let's talk about the defense framework. This is based on Machiavellian principles, not because we're trying to manipulate back, but because Machiavelli understood power dynamics better than almost anyone. The first principle is emotional detachment. This is your foundation. Manipulators thrive on your emotional reactions. When you get defensive, angry, or guilty, they know they've found leverage. The Machiavellian approach? Treat interactions like a chess game. You're not emotionally invested in whether your opponent gets upset. When you take their piece, you're focused on the strategy. This doesn't mean being cold or uncaring. It means creating a psychological buffer between their manipulation attempts and your emotional response. Observe what they're doing rather than reacting to it. Here's a practical technique. When someone tries to manipulate you, mentally step back and narrate what's happening. They're using guilt here. That's interesting. They're trying to make me feel responsible for their emotions. This simple act of observation breaks the automatic reaction cycle. It transforms you from participant to observer, and that shift is everything. The second principle is strategic silence. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you have. Manipulators fill silence with more manipulation, often revealing their true intentions in the process. When someone tries to pressure you, says something designed to provoke a reaction, or asks a loaded question, pause. Let the silence sit. Watch what happens. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they'll rush to fill it, often backtracking or revealing information they didn't intend to share. Meanwhile, you're gathering intelligence. You're learning about their tactics, their desperation level, their true intentions. Machiavelli wrote, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception," I'd add. Never respond with words when silence will do the job better. Silence is not passive. It's active strategy disguised as nothing. The third principle combines the gray rock method with strategic information control. The gray rock method means becoming utterly uninteresting to the manipulator, giving them nothing to work with. You're boring, neutral, unmemorable. But here's where we add the Machiavellian twist. You don't just withhold information randomly. You strategically control what information flows and when. Give manipulators just enough to keep them satisfied but not enough to find leverage. Answer questions literally, but not expansively. How was your day? Fine. Not fine, but let me tell you about this problem I'm having. Remember, every piece of information you share is a potential weapon in their hands. Share strategically or not at all. Think of information like currency. You wouldn't hand money to someone who's going to use it against you. So why hand them information? The fourth principle is redirect and reframe. When a manipulator tries to control the narrative, don't argue within their frame. Reframe entirely. Example, they say, "You never help me with anything." Don't respond with, "That's not true. Remember last week when?" Instead, reframe. "It sounds like you're looking for help with something specific. What do you need?" This does three things. It refuses to accept their false premise. It forces them to be direct instead of manipulative. And it puts you back in control of the conversation. Manipulators hate directness because it eliminates the ambiguity they use to operate. They thrive in the gray areas, in implications and suggestions. Force them into clarity and watch their power evaporate. The fifth principle is setting boundaries like treaties. Machiavelli understood treaties: clear terms, clear consequences, enforced consistently. Your boundaries work the same way. Don't explain, justify, or defend them. State them clearly and enforce the consequences when they're violated. I don't discuss my finances as a boundary. If they push, you don't explain why or defend the boundary. You enforce it by ending the conversation or changing the subject. Manipulators test boundaries constantly. The moment you start defending or justifying, they know the boundary isn't real. A real boundary needs no justification. It simply is. Now let's get into the specific. Techniques for neutralizing common manipulation tactics. The first counter tactic is the fog technique. When someone's trying to provoke you or extract emotional reactions, respond with deliberate vagueness. Them, you're being selfish. You, I can see why you might think that. Not agreeing, not disagreeing, not explaining, just fog. They can't fight fog. There's nothing solid to grab onto. It's like punch and smoke. They're expecting resistance, argument, defense. You give them nothing to push against. The second counter tactic is the Socratic reverse. Manipulators make statements designed to put you on the defensive. Counter by asking questions that force them to think through the logical implications of what they're saying. Them, if you really cared about me, you'd do this. You, what would caring look like to you? How would you know if someone cared? What specifically makes you think this action equals caring? You're not defending yourself, you're making them explain and justify their manipulation attempt. Most manipulators aren't prepared for this because they're used to people being reactive, not analytical. You're treating their emotional manipulation like a thesis they need to defend, and most of them can't. The third counter tactic is the strategic concession. This is pure Machiavelli. Sometimes you give ground on something small to maintain control of something large. If a manipulator is pushing hard on multiple fronts, concede something trivial. This satisfies their need to win while protecting what actually matters to you. But, and this is crucial, you make it clear, at least to yourself, that this was a strategic choice, not submission. You're managing them, not being managed. You're the chess player sacrificing a pawn to protect the queen. The fourth counter tactic is mirror and amplify. When someone uses a manipulation tactic, sometimes the best response is to reflect it back in an exaggerated way that makes it obvious what they're doing. Them using guilt. I guess I'll just handle everything myself like always. You're absolutely right. You should handle everything yourself. You're so much better at it than anyone else could possibly be. The exaggeration makes the manipulation visible. Most manipulators will back off because they rely on subtlety. Once their tactic is exposed and made ridiculous, it loses all power. The fifth counter tactic is the delayed response. Manipulators thrive on immediate reactions. They ask questions or make statements designed to provoke instant responses, while your critical thinking is offline. The counter? Let me think about that and get back to you. Always, for anything important. This simple phrase neutralizes about 70% of manipulation attempts because it gives you time to analyze what's actually being asked and formulate a response on your terms, not theirs. The sixth counter tactic is documentation. In situations where manipulation is ongoing workplace, certain relationships, legal matters, documentation becomes your shield. Manipulators rely on gaslighting, on making you doubt your memory and perception. Written records make this impossible. Email confirmations, text messages, notes with dates and times. This isn't paranoia, it's strategic protection. When they say "I never said that," you can pull out the exact words, the exact time, the exact context. The seventh counter tactic is the broken record. When someone won't accept your no, you don't need to provide new reasons. You repeat your position calmly, without escalation. "I'm not comfortable with that." "But why not?" "I'm not comfortable with that. That doesn't make sense." "Nevertheless, I'm not comfortable with that." No new information, no justification, just consistent repetition. It's boring, which is exactly why it works. Manipulators get bored when they're not getting the reactions they want. They move on to more responsive targets. Everything we've discussed comes down to one fundamental principle: mastery over your own reactions. Manipulators can only control you if they can control your responses. When you master your reactions, you become essentially immune to manipulation. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That space is where your power lives." Practice expanding that space. When you feel manipulated, triggered, or pressured, breathe, pause, observe what you're feeling without immediately acting on it. You're not a robot. You're a human being with the rare gift of conscious choice over unconscious reaction. Now every person has specific manipulation triggers. Maybe it's guilt about not being good enough. Maybe it's fear of abandonment. Maybe it's your need to be seen as helpful. Manipulators are excellent at finding these triggers. Your job is to know them first. Spend time identifying what makes you most likely to comply with unreasonable requests. What emotional buttons, when pushed, make you most reactive? What makes you abandon your boundaries and do things you don't actually want to do? Once you know your vulnerabilities, you can guard them specifically. It's like knowing the weak points in your armor and reinforcing them before the battle. Machiavelli always thought in terms of long-term power and stability, not short-term wins. The same applies here. You're not trying to win each individual interaction. You're building a reputation and pattern as someone who cannot be manipulated. Once manipulators learn you're not a viable target, that you don't react predictably, don't provide leverage, and don't yield to pressure, they move on to easier targets. Your goal is to become a poor return on investment for manipulation attempts. Make it so difficult, so unrewarding to manipulate you that they naturally redirect their energy elsewhere. But here's something important. Sometimes the winning move is to remove yourself from the game entirely. If you're dealing with a chronic manipulator, someone who won't respect boundaries, won't engage honestly, and sees every interaction as a power play, your best strategy might be limiting or ending contact. Machiavelli understood that some conflicts aren't worth the resources required to win them. Sometimes the strategic choice is disengagement. This isn't weakness. It's recognition that your time, energy, and peace of mind are valuable resources that shouldn't be wasted on people who refuse to engage honestly. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some relationships aren't worth saving. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Isn't all of this just manipulation by another name? Here's the distinction. Manipulation involves deception and exploitation for selfish gain. What we're discussing is transparent boundary setting and strategic response to protect your autonomy. You're not trying to control others. You're refusing to be controlled. You're not deceiving anyone. You're simply not allowing others to exploit your natural social instincts. Think of it like martial arts. Learning self-defense doesn't make you violent. It makes you capable of protecting yourself if someone initiates violence against you. The same principle applies here. Understanding manipulation tactics and having counter strategies doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you resilient. The goal isn't to view every interaction through a lens of suspicion and strategy. Healthy relationships are built on trust, vulnerability, and genuine connection. But you need discernment, the ability to recognize when someone is operating in good faith versus when they're trying to manipulate you. Most people in your life deserve your openness and trust. But the ones who repeatedly violate that trust deserve your strategic detachment. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can care about someone and still refuse to be controlled by them. As you master these techniques, you'll notice something. You become more powerful in your interactions. People will be less able to pressure you, and you'll have more influence in various situations. Use that power ethically. Don't become the thing you learn to defend against. The point of all this is freedom. Freedom from being controlled. Freedom to make your own choices. Freedom to set your own boundaries. Not power over others, but power over your own life. So there you have it. The Machiavellian framework for dealing with manipulators isn't about becoming ruthless or cynical. It's about developing the skills and awareness to protect your autonomy, while still engaging authentically with people who deserve your trust. Remember the core principles: emotional detachment in strategic situations, strategic silence, information control, reframing, and boundary enforcement. Practice the counter tactics until they become second nature, and most importantly, know that you have the right to say no, to protect your peace, and to refuse to be controlled, no matter how skilled the manipulator might be. If this video helped you see manipulation more clearly and gave you tools to counter it, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going deep on psychology, strategy, and personal power in every video. Drop a comment below. Have you dealt with a manipulator using these tactics? What worked for you? Let's learn from each other. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, and remember, the best defense is a mind that cannot be moved against its will.